They were warned. The stone doors were sealed with symbols no man dared speak aloud. Ancient markings scratched into black basalt, etched not for the living, but to guard the dead. Most dismissed the words as superstition, but those who ignored them didn't just die, they vanished, erased. Their names, their legacies, swallowed whole by time. This wasn't just myth, this was history, and it all began with a curse carved into a sarcophagus more than 3,000 years ago. Any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to this coffin, may Hemen not accept any goods he offers, and may his heir not inherit. That wasn't metaphor, that was a threat. For centuries, archaeologists, looters, and scholars stepped into the tombs of ancient Egypt chasing fortune or knowledge. Most ignored the warnings. Who could take a curse seriously in the age of rationalism? But deep in burial chambers, sealed since the days of pharaohs, something else lurked. Something the ancients believed in so completely they carved it in stone. These weren't vague warnings. These curses named gods. They promised vengeance, eternal damnation, a future where your children would suffer because you defiled the wrong tomb. And some of those inscriptions turned out to be eerily accurate. Take the tomb of Kentika Ikehi, an official buried in Saqqara around 2200 BCE. The message scrawled across his tomb wall reads, "As for all men who shall enter this my tomb, impure, there will be judgment. I shall seize his neck like a bird. I shall cast the fear of myself into him." It doesn't sound like poetic symbolism. It reads like a threat from the grave, and it's just one of hundreds like it. Tomb curses weren't scattered randomly. They were part of a calculated spiritual defense system. The ancient Egyptians believed in the Ka, a spiritual double that lived on after death. But for the Ka to thrive, the tomb had to remain untouched. If disturbed, the soul suffered. And so the dead lashed out with words as sharp as any blade. Not all curses were elaborate. Some were short, blunt, and brutal. On the false door of a tomb from the Old Kingdom, the warning simply reads, "He who enters my tomb, evil will befall him." Plain, chilling, director. And the more powerful the individual buried, the more venomous the curse. In one particularly fierce example from the 6th dynasty, the curse warns, "Whoever shall enter this tomb, I shall wring his neck as a goose." It's not just meant to scare. It paints a vivid picture, a divine throttling. And for looters and archaeologists who fell sick or died shortly after violating such tombs, the question remains, were these psychological coincidences, or was something darker at work? No story stoked the fire more than the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. Just months after Howard Carter opened the sealed tomb, his financier, Lord Carnarvon, died suddenly, of blood poisoning after a mosquito bite turned septic. The media went wild. "The mummy's curse strikes again," blared headlines. Other deaths followed. George J. Gould I, visitor to the tomb, died of pneumonia. A sea mace, Carter's colleague, died of arsenic poisoning. Arthur Mace, another member of the team, collapsed of a mysterious illness. In total, at least 11 people connected to the tomb died within a decade. Skeptics blame bacteria, mold, and the hazards of working in ancient sealed environments. But locals whispered something else. The boy king's wrath had been awakened. Ironically, no curse inscription was found inside Tut's tomb, but the fear it inspired was very real. Other tombs weren't so shy about their warnings. The curse that began this story, the one that warns, "May Hemen not accept any goods he offers," is one of the most fascinating. Hemen was a falcon-headed god associated with divine retribution. Not as famous as Osiris or Anubis, Hemen was invoked less frequently, only when the threat needed weight. To say, "May Hemen not accept your offerings," was a death sentence beyond the physical. It meant eternal rejection. In Egyptian religion, that was worse than dying. It meant the soul would be unfed, unable to sustain itself in the afterlife. And the added line, "May his heir not inherit," was a spiritual decapitation. You wouldn't just die. Your bloodline would die with you. Your name would be erased from history. To an ancient Egyptian, that was the ultimate curse. Let's get real. Were these warnings just scare tactics? Probably. But the psychological weight they carried was enormous. Ancient tomb robbers were usually desperate men. Superstition wasn't an inconvenience. It was a part of their worldview. Fear of retribution, both mortal and divine, hung over them like a blade. Even modern researchers have hesitated. Zahi Hawass, one of Egypt's most prominent archaeologists, spoke openly about strange occurrences. Lights exploding, computers failing, people dying under bizarre circumstances. Rational explanations existed, but the pattern was hard to ignore. One team working on a Middle Kingdom tomb suffered repeated setbacks. Equipment malfunctioned. Workers became ill. Their lead translator collapsed on site. The inscription above the door? "Disturb not the slumber of the blessed dead. Let him rest in his eternity." Some dismissed it as coincidence. Others packed their bags. Egypt wasn't alone in inscribing threats on tombs. The Sumerians, the Hittites, even the Maya wrote warnings to future generations. In Anatolia, a 13th century BCE royal tomb carries the message, "Whoever opens this, may the gods strike him down with blindness." In China, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the one buried with the terracotta army, reportedly filled his tomb with mercury rivers and booby traps, adding, "Let any intruder perish in deathless pain." Even in 14th century England, grave inscriptions warned of divine judgment for grave robbers. It's as if humanity, across time and culture, shared the same core belief. Don't mess with the dead. Here's where things get strange. In 2018, researchers examining previously untranslated hieroglyphs in a minor noble's tomb discovered something chilling, a sequence of ritual instructions coded into the curse itself. Not just threats, but activation rites. The inscription read, "Should you desecrate this chamber, say these words, 'I call upon the ashes of the black wind. Let their wings find him.'" Egyptologist Dr. Leanne Corbel called it a script for spiritual punishment, a curse not just passive, but operative, an incantation wrapped in a warning. That single line blurred the line between superstition and spellcraft, and it raised new questions. Were some tombs not just guarded by curses, but powered by them? In a newly discovered burial site south of Luxor, dubbed the Tomb of Shadows, archaeologists uncovered a series of warnings more elaborate and more detailed than any previously found. The most disturbing line? "This is not a tomb, it is a doorway. He who opens it opens the path." The site has since been sealed off. Government officials claim it's for preservation. Insiders suggest a different reason. 4 workers entered. None came out. No injuries, no evidence of collapse. Just gone. Whispers call it the vanishing vault. The only thing left behind? A fragment of a wall with an unfinished translation. To speak his name is to... That's where it ends. Here's the question that chills even the most grounded scholars. What if the ancients knew something we've forgotten? What if those curses weren't symbolic? What if they weren't superstition? What if they were technology, spiritual, metaphysical, or otherwise, that we no longer understand? Because somewhere deep in the Sahara, beneath the shifting sands and forgotten stone, lies one tomb still unopened, untouched. The inscriptions on its walls are said to be unlike any seen before. No team has dared go inside, not because of the danger, but because of the final warning etched at its entrance. This is your last breath. And so far, nobody's been willing to test it, yet. Enjoyed this? Hit subscribe and never miss the next story.